The show is what's going on. Your show is what's going on. Here on your host Hugo Fernandez radio. And today my guest is Anita Rivas. Let me make sure I get this right. So the director of facility rentals division of administration. And Anita's leaving us. Anita's going to be leaving us this month. Leaving the college at the end of this month. 41 years of service. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
If people were paying attention, they could have seen you over there on the left side, group of students. Karen McCann, one of your colleagues, who actually got out of here without doing an exit interview. She was front and center.
Yeah.
For that, and I chose that for you because obviously, you've done a lot of things here at the college, but one of the big things you've done for years is putting together commencement, and you finally got it right, and now you're leaving.
Exactly. You leave on a high note.
Yeah, and the way you did that is because you finally found things for me to do where I couldn't get into trouble.
Absolutely. You have to manage your volunteers. You have to play to their strengths and, make sure that their weaknesses are not showing.
It's like George Costanza when he finds out that Elaine is picking up Jerry's mail. So Jerry tells him, "Now listen, George, this is very important. You have to flush the toilet. Keep the gaskets moist." So anyhow, I appreciate how hard it is to work with me. So, typically, Anita, you've been on the show a few times, but you've never had your exit interview. So I don't know if Chris told you a little bit how I do it before we got started. But I like to start, obviously in the beginning to talk about your background, maybe your studies and everything before you came to LaGuardia. So why don't we start there?
Sure. Well, I was a student. I was graduating from Queens College. I did my undergraduate and my master's degree at Queens College. And right as I was graduating from Queens College, I got a job offer at LaGuardia. I had a year or so before I had taken the test to be an administrative assistant. With the city. I was actually a Gittleson. So I was hired, I was supposed to be hired to work at York College's president's office, not the president's office. I was supposed to work for the chair of the biology department. But when I reported for work that first day, HR had me go work with the president's office because they had a vacancy. So I worked there for about a year and was, a typical administrative assistant. I was doing the major part of my duties was to prepare the chancellor's report. I don't know if people are familiar with that, but it's a report that indicates all of the hirings at each of the colleges, and it goes over to CUNY Central. And they approve, Nita Rivas is hired as assistant to Hugo at such and such a salary for such and such a period. And I did all the appointment and reappointment letters for the faculty hires and the adjuncts. So it was like I was spending my life typing.
Back in the days when you had to type, right?
Yeah, exactly. When pre-computer, pre-word processing, it was literally an electric typewriter and me, and it was taki all day. And I also, which was sort of like apropos, I also I was like the baby on the floor where the president's office was, because it was the president and all the vice presidents in that particular suite, and I was like literally the youngest person there. So everybody treated me like the new kid on the block, which was nice. They were absolutely wonderful to me and sort of showed me the ropes. But I entered York College when a lot of their senior people were retiring, and so I planned retirement parties at different venues, which was like, I guess a precursor to what I ended up doing at LaGuardia. So then, because everyone was so nice to me, they also encouraged me to seek really a heel position, either at York or elsewhere. So vacancy notice came by that they thought, would be good for me. And they gave it to me and they said, go for this. So I did, and I got the job at LaGuardia. And when I first started at LaGuardia in October of '81, I started working for HR. And in HR, I wore a number of hats. I was at one point the person that handled all the appointments and reappointments for HEOs. I assisted the grievance hearing officer with grievances. I was the 504 coordinator. I was the affirmative action officer. It ran the gamut. And then HR got sort of acquired by the president's office. It was part of the president's office at one point. So I worked very closely, not only with HR, the president, and I like to say that I've worked for every president that this college has had. I started out with Joe Schenker, and his now wife, Susan Armiger, who was my dean in the Division of External Affairs at the time, and got to know everybody. I mean, it used to be that payroll, like people came to pick up their checks on campus, and the payroll office was right by HR. So I used to see everybody come by. And so I could put a face to a name. There was a time when you sort of like everybody knew each other, because we weren't that big of a college. And seeing people like, every couple of weeks, you got to know who the people were. And because I did all the appointments and reappointments for the HEOs, I got to know my fellow colleagues very well. Both in a happy time when they were being hired, and then in a not so happy time if there was a grievance. But it was a great learning experience. And worked closely with the deans, and at the time we had deans, we didn't have vice presidents. And then when Joe left the college, I worked for, his name? I forget. Senior Moment. But the interim president, gosh.
Sometimes I remember his name. He was, I think he was, wasn't he?
With the white hair?
Yeah, he was faculty who stepped in and then stepped down.
Yes, exactly.
He was in natural science, and I forgot his name now.
Yeah. No, yeah.
I want to say Bowden, but it's not.
No. But I worked for Bowden also. I worked for Ray Bowen. I worked for interim between Gail and Ray. There was Roberta Matthews, who was an interim for a year.
Right.
I worked then, with Gail all this time, and now with Ken Adams. So I've worked for every single president that this college has had. So
no pressure. Who was your favorite? I mean, you're gonna be gone in a month. Can't do anything to you.
Oh, they all have their little quirks. I'm gonna say Gail, because I spent the longest time with her, and the way that she came in, because she had worked here as a faculty member first,
Right.
or a HEO administrator first, in academic affairs. Um, Left the college, and then she resulted in being the president, so being selected president. Um, so it was, I mean, going through that transition from an old regime to a new regime, or a new administration is always interesting. So, and Gail had some great ideas. I mean, the faculty and staff visioning summits that she coordinated, and I had a hand in selecting the venue, and prepping for that and working on those committees. That was the invaluable experience, really.
Somehow I was never invited to those.
Really? Really? I
I
thought
knew I
most
wasn't invited to the one that you guys did at the Botanical Gardens,
Yeah, that was nice.
which
That
ended up
was,
coming up with our goals for the assessment.
yeah.
The six whatever competencies and abilities.
Exactly, exactly. Those got refined over the years, that she had the visioning summits. But I that was the first time that we had done that group activity as a college, and I think it really helped to bring us all together. So I enjoyed that. I also enjoyed working with Ray Bowen. I mean, I remember planning his Sail Away with Ray cruise, his retirement cruise party
Nice.
that we did. And I missed the boat. I don't know if you know this, but I planned the whole thing, right? And the day of, got stuck with doing some last minute things, and I literally missed the boat. The boat is sailing out as I'm driving in. I was beside myself.
I'm surprised you didn't get helicoptered onto the deck or something.
No. They didn't need me that bad. I mean, all the planning, all the seating had been done.
Right.
So people just, it went on, but I was mortified. I was completely mortified. But everybody had a good laugh. It turned out fine. It was lovely.
So you were in HR. Then what happened?
When Ray came aboard, I was working in the president's office because HR got subsumed into the president's office. And it was Marty Mowat that I worked. The interim president was Marty Mowat, and I was working for him during that transition period. And then when Ray came, he had his own staff. He had people that he had in mind for the office. So I started looking for another position, and I ended up working in college and community relations. And I worked with John Katowski, who you might remember was the governmental relations person here at the college. So that was a lot of fun. That was a real partnership. That developed into a real partnership in terms of advocating for and support from the city and state, going down to City Hall, testifying, prepping people to testify before the various committees, all of that. That was tremendous fun. That was really a great learning experience again. And of course, we were refining how the college managed internal events. So we were scheduling rooms and things like that. And before that was like literally a notepad with, okay, Hugo wants this room on such and such a date. And, it's developed into a real scheduling thing nowadays. But in those days, it was literally pen and paper and a phone call. Now it's a little more automated, and we combine services so that the events office is a one-stop shop for anybody seeking a space to hold an event.
Yeah, I remember it's kind of funny because last night I'm staying at Michael Rodriguez's apartment, and I forgot to bring the keys, so I got locked out in the rain. I went to this local theater
Mm.
where in Soho called the Angelica, where they show, artsy movies. So I'm sitting in the artsy movie. It's about Ireland, but it starts out with this like Slavic chorus song singing. And I don't know if you remember, you once got me. Uh, well, it was on a, it was a, the social science people were holding this like Slavic chorus, this Slavic uh, convention on a Saturday,
Uh-huh.
and I got my Yale Slavic chorus connection to come and perform in E500,
Ah.
and that's one of the songs they sang. Uh, but anyhow,
History repeats itself, right?
everybody knows that. Well, Saturday, if people are looking for a cheap day or a free day, it's always the Saturday, right? Because we got nothing going on here on a
Mm-hmm.
Saturday most times.
Yeah,
Most
yeah, most times, yeah.
Okay, so you're working with events there, and so what happened when Gail came on board? When was your next transition?
Um, I stayed in external affairs. John eventually left. He went to work for the central office. And I became the acting director of governmental relations and community affairs. And, took over some of the functions that he was doing until Gail hired Jose Arengo as her right hand person. So there was also a period of transition where I was working closely with Jose in terms of, bringing him up to speed in terms of what we had done and what he needed to cover, things like that. And, always worked very closely with the president's office. But then external affairs sort of moved, from the president's office to its own division. So then the person that sort of moved us was Ray. He did institutional advancement, which was development, it was events, it was marketing, it was communications. That's how that sort of formed. And Gail took it over, the same way. It stayed that way for a while. And, now it's morphed into development as part of the president's office, because one of the reasons that Gail brought Jose in was really to get the foundation started,
Right.
and that whole development area started, which really it had existed in some form in the early days. I don't know if you recall the LaGuardia Tradition Dinner.
No.
That was the one. Well, we had a dean that would run that every year, and it was, the fundraiser. It was the only fundraiser that the college really did formally. But those types of fundraisers, they don't really make a lot of money. They really don't. They cost more than you bring in. Um, so that sort of, it was a one shot deal. And really, I don't know that it generated a lot of income. And I didn't handle that part of it. At the time, I wasn't working, for that. The development office did everything in terms of finding the venue and things like that. I just might have handled like the guest list for the president's office. That was it. Um, but eventually, it morphed into, what now exists, which is external affairs and communications and development as part of the president's office. And, they've got the right people in the right place, because, the foundation is really making money. Development office is bringing in lots of much needed funding for our students. So it's great.
There's a project I'm working on the side where we're supposed to record the history of the Senate, and you would have been on that list. I don't know if you'll ever come back to do an interview for that. But
if it can be
you
done fine, sure.
you and I were on the Senate together for a period of time.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk anything about your role on the Senate over the years?
Well, I guess I started in the Senate in the early 90s. I started really being a member of the Senate then. And I was even vice chair at one time of the Senate, elected vice chair. And the Senate has really developed over the years. I am so thrilled at the work that we've done in terms of coming together. The LaGuardia Senate is an odd bird because we have faculty, staff, and students as members of the Senate. Where in you know every other college, it's just the students and the faculty that make up the Senate. So this tripartite system, didn't always work well at LaGuardia. There were, it was sort of a us versus them kind of mentality. I mean, we came together, but there were some tensions there. And I think over the years, we've really worked very, very hard. Number one, to work together, to realize that we're stronger together than we are apart, and that we have so many things in common, and less, areas of, where we can agree to disagree. Um, but part of what I am proudest of is the fact that the chair of the college senate is on the president's cabinet.
Yeah.
That is like major, major. And I have to thank Paul Arcario for that, who agreed to that idea when he was interim president.
Right. President Adams has, carried it on.
And he's carried it on. I am proudest of the work that my subcommittee, the Committee of Staff and Alumni, did in creating the first ever employee engagement survey. And the results of that survey has been shared with the entire college community. I know that it was one of the first documents that the president read, and he met with us. He met with every group. He met with the faculty senators. He met with the student senators. He met with COSA, and have really paid attention to what the issues were, what percolated up from the survey. And we're getting ready, well, not me, but we're getting ready to do the second survey, which is a follow-up survey to the first one, to see where the college is at, where staff are at in terms of, did anything improve after the first survey? Are people feeling more connected, less connected with the college? So that's I believe the survey is going to, the goal is to have it prepared and sent out in March. So we're, the original contract called for the first survey and then a follow-up survey. So, it's already paid for.
We're going to talk about that in a second, but I want to just take a minute because it's 1:29, so we're going to do a quick station break. The show is What's Going On. I'm your host, Hugo Fernandez, here on LaGuardia Web Radio. Our 99th show together, my collaboration with my engineer, Christopher Pope, who's always behind the scenes running things. And my guest today is Anita Rivas, who is the Director of Event Services and Facility Rentals in the Division of Administration. And this is her exit interview because Anita is leaving the college at the end of this month after over 41 years of service. So I was just going to mention that, after the last survey, there were major repercussions. I mean, it altered the landscape, so to speak. So I can only imagine what the next round is going to be like. But we're moved into this part of the exit interview, which I call the greatest hits. So this is, and you kind of started it already by talking about what you felt was important in, in your role in the Senate. But we can go back to talking about your role, in the administration. If you had to talk about the things that you are the proudest of, or you think that, you were involved with that you think of as as your greatest hit, like something that was really worth doing? What are some
Well,
of the things that you would mention?
well, I think that when I came on board, um, I I didn't have a lot of professional work experience behind me, and I came into supervisors and deans that I worked closely with that sort of guided me and just helped me be a better professional, be prepared. Susan Arminger was one of those people. I loved working for her. She was absolutely wonderful with her time, with her advice, um, and I worked with I worked with a lot of the LaGuardia founders, the people that really had come in the 70s and started the campus. Okay. You know, they they were teachers. They were just, wonderful teachers for me. So I wanted to grow up to be Susan Arminger. No, that was my goal. I was a 20-something-year-old, very impressionable, and just saw how together she was, and how respected she was on campus, and the work that she was doing. So I wanted to emulate that. And it was a time where you could step out of your lane, so to speak, and take on other projects where, work on the Senate was encouraged. Volunteer work on the various Senate subcommittees was encouraged and valued. It was included in my annual evaluation. Okay. So, the more that I gave back to the college and became involved in the college, the more rewarding it was in terms of, my overall evaluation, but you felt good doing it. So that was like value added to, as far as I'm concerned, because you're not stuck in an office not knowing anybody else, just, your core group. You sort of like get out of your space and learn what the other guy's doing, what their problems are, what their issues are, what their thinking is, their work, and how that dovetails to yours. Okay, so there's a real connection there. And I've worked for areas that connected with every other area of the college. You can't work in HR and not know every every staff member. Okay, at least their name. You can't work in the events office and not have people talk to you on a daily basis, or you help plan their events and not get to know people and their programs and what they do. You can't work on graduation. Okay, I've got like 160 volunteers on the day of graduation. That's every area of the college that's impacted and that works on that. Okay, it's I may have the overall vision, and I get my marching orders from the president and the cabinet, but you know you cannot run something that large without a lot of help and a lot of subcommittees and planning that goes into that. So I've always been a detail person. The devil is in the details, and so I'm smashing him every way that I can. But from each graduation, each event, you learn and you say, okay, that's not the way to go. This is the way to go. This is what works best for this community. This is what works best for our students. This is what works best. So you sort of like, keep building on successes and learning from your mistakes. It's like not letting Hugo be near a microphone. Major, major thing to learn. Keep him away. Get that hook ready and keep him away from a microphone.
Well, just in my defense, I was goaded into it. By the way, I will point out that after this last graduation, there was no follow-up. And as far as you used to like to get together and say, okay, what worked, what didn't. But I guess since transition was happening, that ball dropped.
Well, you have to realize it's a new administration. I did mention that, but it's so late in the term. Like, graduation was June 21st.
Right.
What faculty members are going to be here after that? For
me,
a few, but not most.
Right.
And the president decided to take out people that had worked on graduation. So we went out to lunch with the president.
Nice.
Yeah, right after the ceremony. So he took us all out to lunch, a group of us out to lunch, which was really nice and was very, very nice of him. He also acknowledged my work on graduation, which was the first time I've ever gotten like a public thank you, which was really very nice of him.
So what else? What other greatest hits would you cite?
I guess learning about the governance plan. HR used to do the elections for a chair and P&B, right? And so I had to study the original governance plan to run those departmental elections. And I remember my first one had to be, and you just bring the ballots. You ask, you give out the ballots to the people that can vote, and if there are any substitutes, you tell them, don't take a ballot. I was relatively new and I didn't know everybody. And there was, I forget the department, but people started questioning why they couldn't vote. And I had a list of names of the eligible voters and, not really understanding all of the nuances. I couldn't tell the person that was saying, but I think I could vote. And I'm saying, your name is not on my list, you can't vote. So we had to cancel that election. I was, devastated that happened, but it happened on a day when all of the leadership was at a women's conference. So there wasn't even anyone that we could call to settle the matter. So that was like terrifying to me that, that had happened, and I felt terrible. But, you learn from your mistakes. So it was like, you couldn't tell me anything about elections. I would know who the people were. I would know if there were any substitutes that could not vote, or any part-timers that happened to be in a departmental meeting when a P&B election was going to be taking place. So I could handle that afterwards. So talk about trial by fire. That was one of mine. But I learned the governance plan. I mean, so that when the Senate revamped the governance plan, I was a part of that. I've also served on various Senate subcommittees. I've been the chair of campus affairs for seems like forever. We instituted the no smoking policy. Okay, we managed the prices in the cafeteria and the bookstore to make sure that they were affordable and they were following the contract that the college has. We went out to bid for a new food service vendor. We even had a town hall where we invited the finalists, the final bidders who had won the contract. We invited them to come on campus and give us a sample of their food so that the college community could vote on, which one they liked. So, those sorts of things to me are, what I was a part of and managed for the college, which is very gratifying, to provide that type of service and pull it off. Okay, made plenty of mistakes, but I've learned from them, and kept getting better and better.
Because you talk about your role of external affairs and community relations, you've had some I've been a part of some of that. I remember when we did the Chilean study abroad trip,
Yeah.
and then you were able to get the Queens Museum
Yeah.
to do an exhibition.
Hmm.
And so in fact, both groups got to show their work at
Yeah.
that. So are there some other relationships like that that you built over the years with
Um,
external
yeah.
folks?
Yeah. There were a couple of events that we created. I forget the name of the author, but there was an adjunct lecturer in the English department who wrote a book, and I got her to come in and do a lecture on her book. And of course, the entire English department came, but also students. And we had a book signing. So that was like a relationship that was created through those external affairs, because we were always asking faculty and staff, do you know anybody? What are students doing? What are faculty doing? That might be notable, because we're looking to do stories on them. We were looking to do, make those connections. There was also an alum. I also ran the Alumni Association office at one point, different hats. Uh, and we did this thing. Let me just see. Bear with me. Let me find the book. Let me find the book.
I was waiting for you to get out of the frame because I've guessed that what we're looking at is an overhead view of Florence, right?
Uh,
Because that's the cathedral, that's El Duomo, and then the baptistry is right in front of it there. I figured it out. I couldn't. It took me a while. I was thinking it was Venice because it looked like water, but
um,
it's Florence, right?
yeah. There with my connection with the Queensborough President's Office, we actually found an alum. His name is Orlando Tabone, and he, I don't know, this is not going to show. Anyway,
It
he
shows a
wrote the
little bit when you
Jackson.
put it in front of your face.
Oh, it works there.
When it's in front of your face, now it doesn't. It's visible man.
Uh,
Yeah, it's hard to do it when you got
yeah.
that kind of thing on.
Anyway, he wrote the Jackson Heights Chronicles. When crossing the border isn't enough. So we had a book signing with him also. And that connected us to the community, because, he literally was writing about Jackson Heights, which is one of our target audiences, or one of our target areas, in terms of, we get a lot of students from within Queens. So, it was wonderful to have him here and give a lecture on his book, and sign some books. I helped Gail in the early part of Gail's tenure here. She did tours of the various areas where most of the neighborhoods where our students come from. Okay, so we did a Jackson Heights tour, we did a Long Island City tour, we did a Flushing tour. Okay, and she would take out new faculty. She would invite new faculty to these tours, so the faculty would get to know the neighborhoods where our students are coming from. And I helped to organize those tours. And of course, I went on them and got to enjoy them too. But it was a wonderful connection, number one, with local business, okay, because we were going to these different restaurants and patronizing them. And, lots of them I've been to again and again, and as well as have some of my colleagues who happen to go on the tours. But you also, like, literally got to learn about those neighborhoods. What's there? What stores are there? What the stories are. So that sort of stuff was very gratifying, and a learning experience. That I wouldn't have had anyplace else. We would not. I
It's
can't.
a good. That's something it sounds like we should start doing again. But we've moved into that part of the show where we would take questions. Hold on, let me take a look at the feed. There's no questions in the feed. on the stream chat. So the other option we have is you can start talking about what you're going to be doing now after you leave LaGuardia, the future, or you can give, some advice for those of us who are going to stay behind and keep doing the work. Some things that you think that you would like to share that might help us do our job a little bit better.
Okay. Well, I'm going to sleep for about a month. That's the first thing. I am exhausted. I literally am exhausted. It's been a challenging couple of years, health-wise for myself. So being a cancer survivor, all of that, is it changes your perspective. So I'm going to take some time to just rest and do nothing. And just spend it with family and friends. And then in February, I'm putting up my apartment for sale. When the sale goes through, I'll be moving to Virginia. I have family in Virginia, so I'll be looking for a home down there. But I need to move there in order to do that. I don't want to be going back and forth. I just want to do a clean move. So if anybody's looking for an apartment in Flushing, I've got a 1-bedroom that'll be going up for sale and is completely renovated. I'll even sell it with furniture. Great deal.
I don't think I could afford it.
Somebody can afford it. Trust me, somebody can afford it. Anyway, so that those are sort of like my immediate plans. Once I'm settled, I want to travel. I have a very close friends, group of friends that I've traveled with throughout my lifetime. We've been friends since high school. We all went to the same high school together and have remained friends. And so, we want to do a lot more traveling. I'm one of the last ones to retire. So now we're all free. Now we can just pick up and go. Before we would have to go on vacation if we were doing it together June or July, because one was a teacher in the Florida grade schools and she started working in August. So, we couldn't do that. And then I couldn't do September because graduation was in September. So it was but now it doesn't matter. There are no holds barred. We can go whenever we want to go. So that'll be, something to look forward to. And wherever I land and whatever I buy, there's always going to be a guest room for my friends to come and visit. So, those that have my cell phone number, Hugo, you're one of them. So feel free, come to Virginia. It's a beautiful state. And, I plan to do, now that I have time, plan to do a lot of entertaining also. So, that's a goal. In terms of the people that are here and working, I think I really want to see a HEO, one of the members of COSA, on the president's cabinet, because we've got the faculty. I'd really like to see a HEO on there. Not that the chair of the Senate is not carrying, the issues and concerns of staff. Christie's doing a tremendous job. Completely trust her. But I think sometimes it's best to hear it from the horse's mouth. And so I would like that type of representation. I want the Senate to continue to grow and be respected and known college-wide as we're part of governance, okay? Where we have a voice in what happens on this campus, and we need to exercise that voice. And so I want the Senate to be a place where people come and bring their issues and, try to resolve them. So, I think the Senate has come a very long way from the early years. it's getting better and better, and I really want, that to continue, that route to continue. In terms of, you know, the college is in a funny place because it's in that major transition period where, because of the pandemic, we've lost a lot of people. We've, lost a lot of leaders, you know, and we're all short staffed, and, everybody inherits, whoever left, everybody else inherits their work. It's the LaGuardia way.
Yes.
So we're in a funny transition period. We've got a new administration. President Adams seems to be like a really good fundraiser. So I believe, time will tell, that he's going to be an external president as opposed to hands-on president. I'm not sure. But what I like about him is that, number one, he read the employee engagement survey, and he was very interested in what we had come up with and very responsive. Number two, he comes to all the Senate meetings, practically all of them, and pays attention, believes in governance, and believes in shared governance. Okay. So I think we're in good hands in terms of the administration. We just have to get past this, lack of staffing. We have to recover. We have to recover in terms of, getting rid of the deficit. That's CUNY-wide, but still,
right.
It still affects us, and what we can do. But we need to really restore the ranks of staff. We need bodies. We need bodies to do the work. It takes a lot to support our students, and they're not getting the best of us because we're swamped. So I'm hoping that things will change economically. And the college will continue to do what it's always done, which is to serve our students. That's the most important thing.
We've got a couple of minutes left before we play the recessional-esque clip. So, any last folks you want to thank, or anything you want to, any last words you want to say that you might have forgot to say?
Well, yeah. Well, I want to thank my vice president Shahir Irfan, and Ken Campanelli and Evelyn Lomark, who have been extremely supportive and just wonderful leaders over the last 5-6 years that I've been in the division. I couldn't ask better support. They've been wonderful, and just wish them all the best. I wish the college and all my colleagues all the best. It's been a pleasure to work with Christy Bruns and Patricia Sokolsky, who are immediate past chairs of the Senate. I have a wonderful slew of friends that I will never forget and will remain in touch with, no matter where I am. We're friends for life. So I just, you don't stay in higher education for the money. It sure ain't the money. But you stay because of the work and the people that you work with, and that's why I've lasted 41 years.
I just want to say thank you on behalf of the college. Thanks you for your service. Thanks for being on this show. I never know whether who's willing to go through this for an hour with me, but it's worthwhile, and hopefully, folks in the future, folks will watch this and learn from it. You have a lot of experience to share. And I want to thank the folks who've been watching today and who will watch on the archive. Today's show, my guest was Aneta Rivas, the Director of Event Services and Facility Rentals in the Division of Administration. This has been her exit interview. She'll be leaving the college at the end of this month after over 41 years of service. And again, this is our 99th show of what's going on with my engineer, Christopher Pope, in the background there. And the next time you see it, our 100th anniversary. We're hoping to get Deborah Engel, who is another colleague of yours, to do her exit interview. And I just want to thank everybody for watching, for listening, and we will go out as we came in with the LaGuardia 2022 graduation, now recessional. Thank you.
Thank you.